There's a kind of silence that speaks louder than a room full of voices. It's the silence you enter when you finally stop chasing noise. The noise of people's opinions, the pressure of timelines that aren't yours, the distractions that promise quick happiness but steal long-term fulfillment. In that silence, you meet the only person who's been there all along, you. And for maybe the first time, you ask yourself, what do I want? Not what others expect, not what looks impressive, but what truly matters to me. We live in a world that praises multitasking but punishes introspection, that celebrates external validation while mocking solitude. But the truth is, all real transformation begins the moment you pull your focus inward. Not out of selfishness, but out of clarity. Out of the quiet realization that no dream will carry you forward unless you first believe you're worthy of it. No path will make sense until it becomes yours, and no amount of noise will guide you like your own still, inner voice. This episode is not about motivation that fades after 10 minutes. It's about a shift in how you see yourself, how you treat your time, and how you protect your vision. We're going to walk through the mindset that builds confidence from the inside out, the kind of self-worth that doesn't depend on likes, praise, or applause. Because if you want a powerful life, a peaceful life, a meaningful life, it starts with this. Focus on yourself, and the rest will follow. So, take a breath, tune in, and prepare to rediscover the most important project of your life, you. When was the last time you sat with yourself, not out of loneliness, but out of intention? Not because the world was quiet, but because you chose to quiet it. Most people never do. They're too busy, too distracted, always tuned into someone else's life, someone else's opinion, someone else's approval. But what if I told you that everything you're searching for, clarity, direction, strength, it's already within you? The only thing missing is your focus. Self-focus is not self-obsession. It's not vanity. It's not about ignoring others or pretending the world doesn't matter. It's about understanding that personal growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you turn the mirror inward and ask the uncomfortable questions. Who am I becoming? What do I value? What needs to change? These questions don't come from scrolling or comparing. They come from honest reflection. And only when you slow down enough to listen can you begin to grow in the right direction. Growth starts the moment you stop outsourcing responsibility for your life. It begins when you say, no more blaming, no more waiting for someone to save me, no more hoping someone else will hand me permission. The truth is, no one's coming to do the work for you. No one's going to force you to evolve. That's your job. And the most powerful thing you can do is own it, fully, unapologetically. When you begin focusing on yourself, you start noticing things you used to ignore. How much energy you waste worrying about things that aren't your concern. How often you say yes when you mean no. How easily you betray your own needs to keep the peace. That awareness, it's not comfortable, but it's necessary, because the uncomfortable truth always comes before the powerful breakthrough. You can't change what you refuse to confront. And you can't confront anything if your attention is always turned outward. This isn't just about removing distractions. It's about rebuilding the relationship you have with yourself. Imagine treating yourself the way you treat someone you admire, listening to your thoughts with respect, setting boundaries with love, pushing yourself with compassion, not judgment. That's what self-focus creates. It teaches you how to become your own coach instead of your own critic. And here's the paradox. When you finally start focusing on your inner world, your outer world starts to shift. People treat you differently. You attract opportunities that align with who you really are. You stop chasing and start attracting. Because energy follows attention, and when your attention is rooted in self-growth, your entire life begins to reflect that. So today, I want you to remember this. Growth doesn't come from doing more. It comes from being more present with yourself. Stop waiting for a sign, a mentor, or a perfect moment. Be the sign. Become the guide. Create the moment. Your personal growth is your responsibility, and the first step is simple. Start by focusing on you. How much of what you chase is truly yours? Think about that for a moment. How many of your goals, routines, even dreams were inherited, borrowed, or absorbed from someone else? It's easy to mistake ambition for alignment, to believe you want something simply because it looks good, sounds impressive, or earns applause. But true growth begins when you strip away the noise and ask yourself, do I actually want this, or have I just been taught to want it? Understanding your true desires isn't a luxury, it's a necessity, because if you don't know what genuinely moves you, you'll waste your life climbing someone else's ladder, only to reach the top and realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. The tragedy isn't failing at your dreams, it's succeeding at things that were never meant for you in the first place. This is why self-reflection is so powerful. Not the surface-level kind, but the raw, uncomfortable kind. The kind where you sit with yourself and admit what no one else knows. Maybe you don't want the career you're in. Maybe you're chasing a lifestyle that empties you instead of energizes you. Maybe your dream is quieter, slower, simpler, and you've been afraid to claim it because it doesn't impress anyone else. But here's the truth. Authenticity will always outperform approval in the long run. To understand what you truly want, you have to stop performing and start listening. Listen to how your body reacts when you imagine different paths. Pay attention to what gives you energy versus what drains it. Notice what you would still do even if no one ever saw or celebrated it. Your deepest desires aren't loud, they're subtle, but they're always there, waiting beneath the surface of your distractions. And this isn't about sudden answers. It's about learning to ask better questions. If success didn't require validation, what would I pursue? If failure wasn't a fear, what would I risk? If I were completely honest with myself, what would I walk away from right now? And what would I walk toward? Most people avoid these questions because they fear what the answers might demand. Change. And change is scary. But what's scarier is spending your entire life living someone else's dream while neglecting your own. You weren't born to play a role in someone else's script. You were born to write your own, even if it's messy, even if it's misunderstood. Understanding your true desires is the beginning of self-respect. It's telling the world, I refuse to be defined by expectations that don't reflect who I am. And it's also telling yourself, I'm willing to honor what makes me come alive, even if that means disappointing others. That's not rebellion, that's truth. And truth is where freedom begins. So pause today and ask yourself, if no one was watching, if nothing was expected, if every option was on the table, what would you choose? Start there. That's where your real life begins. There's a quiet war happening inside so many people, a constant tug-of-war between who they really are and who the world expects them to be. You feel it when you hesitate before making a decision, wondering how it'll look. You feel it when you shrink your voice just to avoid conflict. And you feel it most when your soul whispers one thing, but everyone around you expects another. That's the weight of external expectations, subtle, heavy, and often invisible. From a young age, we're programmed to seek approval. Be a good student, make your parents proud, fit in with your peers, follow the rules. And even when we grow up, the game doesn't stop. It just changes clothes. It becomes about status, image, performance. You start chasing what society applauds instead of what your heart truly desires. But here's the truth that Stoic thinkers understood long before the noise of modern life. The only expectations worth meeting are the ones you place upon yourself, guided by reason and virtue, not by the fleeting applause of others. Overcoming external expectations doesn't mean rejecting everyone's advice or living in isolation. It means developing the courage to filter what's useful and discard what's not, to hear people's opinions without turning them into commandments, and most of all, to stop measuring your life through someone else's lens. Because the moment you begin to live for others, you abandon the one life that was uniquely yours to live. Ask yourself this: who are you trying to impress? Whose voice echoes in your mind when you doubt yourself? And are those expectations rooted in love or control? Because there's a difference. Love supports who you are. Control demands who you should be. And real growth begins when you stop trying to live up to an image and start living in alignment with your values. It's hard. No one teaches you how to say thank you, but no. No one teaches you how to walk away from a path that looks good on paper but feels wrong in your chest. But you must. Because the cost of betraying yourself is far greater than the discomfort of disappointing others. And the longer you delay that truth, the more distant you become from your own life. There's power in reclaiming your autonomy, in saying, I respect your vision for me, but I choose my own. It might be quieter, it might be slower, it might not be admired by the crowd, but it will be yours. And that's what makes it meaningful. Living according to external expectations is like wearing a mask that fits well but suffocates over time. You can keep pretending, but eventually you'll run out of air. So give yourself permission to take off the mask, to be seen, not for what others want, but for who you truly are. Because freedom isn't just about breaking rules, it's about breaking patterns. And the most dangerous pattern of all is living a life you never chose. The world will always have expectations, but the question is, will you let them define you, or will you define yourself? You don't find self-worth in the mirror, or in someone else's eyes, or in the echo of applause. You build it, moment by moment, choice by choice. It's not something you stumble upon one day. It's something you create through how you treat yourself when no one else is watching. Because real self-worth isn't about what you have or what you've achieved. It's about what you believe you deserve. Not in a boastful way, but in a grounded, unshakable way that says, I don't need to earn my place. I already belong. But the truth is, many people are walking through life bankrupt in self-worth, trying to buy their value through achievements, relationships, or constant productivity. They wear exhaustion like a badge, hoping someone will finally say, you're enough. But here's the uncomfortable reality. No one can give you what you haven't chosen to give yourself. You build self-worth by showing up for yourself, by keeping your promises even when it's hard, by speaking to yourself with the same compassion you give others, and most of all, by refusing to abandon yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. Every time you say yes to what drains you, every time you stay silent when your voice matters, every time you tolerate less than you deserve, you teach yourself that your needs are secondary. And over time, that message becomes your belief. But you can rewrite that story. It starts with boundaries, not walls, but doors you choose to open or close. It continues with discipline, not punishment, but self-respect in motion. And it deepens with truth, not perfection, but honesty, about who you are, what you feel, and what you need. Because self-worth isn't just about feeling good. It's about treating yourself like you matter, even when no one else does. Think about how you speak to yourself in moments of failure. Do you become your own enemy or your own ally? The voice inside your head becomes the soundtrack of your life. And if that voice is harsh, belittling, or dismissive, you'll live in quiet war with yourself, even if the world thinks you've got it all together. But if that voice is kind, clear, and courageous, you'll build a kind of confidence that doesn't crumble under pressure. And here's what happens when you begin to believe in your own worth. You stop chasing. You stop begging. You stop molding yourself into versions that others find palatable. Instead, you stand still and let the right people, the right opportunities, and the right path find you. Because confidence isn't loud, it's calm, and self-worth isn't shown, it's felt. So if you want to build something that lasts, start within. Start by choosing yourself in small ways, consistently. Say no when something violates your peace. Say yes to what brings you home to yourself. Don't wait for someone to validate you. Become your own source of value. Because the truth is, no dream, no relationship, no success will ever feel fulfilling if it rests on a foundation of self-doubt. You are not a project that needs fixing. You are a soul that needs remembering. And your worth, it was never in question. Only your awareness of it was. Solitude is often misunderstood. It's mistaken for loneliness, for isolation, for something to be feared or escaped. But solitude, when chosen with intention, is one of the most powerful tools for clarity, healing, and self-realignment. It's not about being away from people. It's about being fully present with yourself. No distractions, no performance, no need to explain or impress. Just you, your thoughts, your breath, and the space to finally hear what's been drowned out by noise. In a world that's constantly rushing, constantly buzzing, constantly pulling your attention outward, choosing solitude is a radical act. It's a way of saying, I matter enough to be with myself. Most people are afraid of what they'll find in silence, their doubts, their regrets, the truth they've been too busy to face. But the truth is never your enemy. Running from it is. Because what you ignore only grows louder in the background, and what you confront begins to soften, to teach, to guide. When you embrace solitude, you start to notice the pace you've been living at. You begin to feel how tired your soul has become, trying to keep up with everyone else's expectations. And for the first time, you remember what your own energy feels like when it's not diluted by comparison, people-pleasing, or constant input. Solitude becomes a reset, not just for your mind, but for your entire being. It's in solitude that your real voice emerges. Not the voice shaped by social media, by family roles, by professional expectations, but the voice that existed long before the world told you who you should be. That voice knows what you care about. It knows where you're out of alignment. It knows what you've been avoiding, and it gently but firmly calls you back to yourself. Solitude also teaches you emotional independence. When you learn to be at peace in your own company, you stop depending on others to complete you. You stop clinging to relationships out of fear. You stop searching for validation in every room you enter, because you've already made peace within. That's not detachment, it's strength, it's presence, it's self-mastery. This is why some of the wisest people in history, from philosophers to artists to spiritual leaders, all valued solitude. Not because they disliked people, but because they understood that depth requires distance. To truly see clearly, you need space. Space to think, space to feel, space to choose again. And that space is not found in more noise, more opinions, or more scrolling. It's found in intentional stillness. So carve out moments, not just once a year on vacation, but daily, to be alone with yourself. Turn off the world for a while. Take a walk without your phone. Sit in silence without music. Journal without filtering. And don't rush to fill the quiet. Let it stretch. Let it breathe. Because in that space, something sacred happens. You come back to life. And the more you practice solitude, the more you realize that being alone doesn't mean you're empty. It means you're full of insight, full of presence, full of untapped power waiting to be remembered. The world will always be there when you return. But you're the one worth meeting first. Without direction, even the strongest energy gets wasted. You can be busy every hour of the day, responding to messages, crossing off tasks, showing up for everyone, and still feel like you're going nowhere. That's the danger of living without clear, purposeful goals. Activity becomes a substitute for progress. Motion replaces meaning, and eventually you confuse exhaustion for achievement. Setting goals isn't just about ambition, it's about clarity. It's about giving your life a structure, a compass, a reason to wake up and move forward with intention. Without that, you're drifting, even if you're running. And drifting might feel freeing at first, but over time, it leads to emptiness. Because deep down, every human being craves direction, not just to do something, but to become someone. But not all goals are created equal. Many people set goals based on what looks impressive, what earns respect, what makes them feel valuable in the eyes of others. And while those goals can create temporary motivation, they rarely lead to long-term fulfillment. Why? Because they weren't born from within. They were borrowed, inherited, or imposed. Purposeful goals begin with self-awareness. They emerge when you ask deeper questions. What truly matters to me? What impact do I want to have? What kind of life would I be proud to live, even if no one else saw it? These goals aren't about performance. They're about alignment. They might not look flashy. They might take longer, but they will anchor you. They'll guide your decisions when things get confusing. They'll help you say no with confidence, and they'll pull you forward on the hard days when motivation disappears. There's a reason ancient philosophers, from the Stoics to Eastern sages, emphasized intentional living. To live without aim, they warned, is to waste the one life you've been given. Seneca wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." That's not just poetic, it's a brutal truth. Without a destination, life's challenges won't strengthen you, they'll scatter you. Every storm will feel like chaos instead of a test. Every obstacle will seem like a punishment instead of a path. So how do you set goals that matter? You slow down, you reflect, you cut through the noise and listen to the quiet pull inside you. You define success in your own words, not society's. You write down what you value, and then you reverse engineer your daily actions to reflect those values. A goal isn't just a future result, it's a current commitment. It's a decision to walk in a specific direction, no matter how slow the steps feel. And here's the most powerful part. When your goals are rooted in purpose, you stop chasing motivation. You move from discipline, from clarity, from conviction. You're no longer swayed by every new trend, every fleeting desire, every fear of missing out. You're building something deeper, a life that reflects who you really are, not who the world expects you to be. So if you feel lost, don't panic. Just pause. Look within. Ask yourself what matters, and then begin, even if the first step is small. Because when you walk with purpose, even the smallest step takes you somewhere meaningful. A life without vision is like a ship without a sail. It floats, it moves, but it never truly arrives. You might be surrounded by activity, by responsibilities, by endless tasks that fill your calendar. Yet, underneath it all, there's a quiet question that never goes away. Where am I actually going? That's the power of vision. It gives your life a future to move toward, a reason to endure the present, and a path to shape every decision with intention. Creating a vision for your future isn't about controlling every detail. It's not about predicting the exact job you'll have, the exact place you'll live, or the precise timeline of every achievement. It's deeper than that. It's about defining the essence of the life you want to create, the values, the feeling, the contribution, the version of yourself you're becoming. It's about clarity, not certainty, alignment, not control. When you live without vision, you default to survival mode. You react instead of create. You settle instead of choose. And over time, you lose the spark that once made you feel alive. Because you're not meant to just exist. You're meant to build, to evolve, to move with purpose. And that begins with seeing something greater than your current reality. A vision gives your struggles meaning. When you know what you're working toward, discomfort becomes tolerable. Sacrifice becomes strategic. You're no longer just grinding. You're investing. You're no longer chasing random wins. You're planting roots. And every setback becomes easier to handle because it doesn't define you. It simply refines you. But crafting that vision takes honesty. You have to ask yourself, what kind of life do I want to wake up to? What kind of impact do I want to leave behind? Who do I need to become to build that life? These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary ones. Because vision isn't just about dreaming, it's about choosing. And choice requires awareness. Take a moment and imagine your ideal day, not a vacation, not a fantasy, but a normal day in your dream life. What time do you wake up? How do you feel? What work do you do? And does it matter to you? Who surrounds you? What are you creating, giving, experiencing? That image holds clues to your vision. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. And here's the truth. The more clearly you see your future, the more powerfully you'll move in the present. You'll stop tolerating things that don't serve your path. You'll start aligning your habits, your time, and your energy with what actually matters. You'll make decisions faster, not because you have all the answers, but because you know where you're going. Remember, vision is not a luxury for the lucky. It's a necessity for the intentional. You don't have to know every step. You just have to commit to the journey. Start with one image, one feeling, one sentence that describes the future you're building. Then revisit it daily. Let it guide your thoughts. Let it shape your actions. Let it pull you forward, even when motivation fades. Because the future isn't waiting for someone to guess their way into it. It's waiting for someone brave enough to design it. Resilience isn't built when things go smoothly. It's forged in the tension between falling and standing back up, between hearing no and trying again, between feeling lost and deciding to move forward anyway. That's where persistence lives, not in perfection, not in talent, but in the quiet decision to continue, even when no one's clapping, even when doubt whispers louder than faith. In a world obsessed with shortcuts, this is your secret power, refusing to quit when the path gets hard. There's this false idea that successful people are somehow immune to failure or discouragement. But the truth is, they've just made peace with discomfort. They've stopped expecting the road to be easy and started welcoming struggle as part of the process. They know that every setback holds a lesson, and every challenge is a mirror reflecting the strength they still need to develop. Resilience isn't about bouncing back to who you were. It's about becoming someone stronger because of what you've faced. And that growth, it's invisible at first. No one sees the internal battles. No one sees the nights when you're questioning everything. No one sees the quiet courage it takes to keep going when it feels like nothing is working. But those moments matter. They're the bricks that build character. They're the evidence that you're becoming someone who doesn't just want results, you want mastery. And mastery demands patience. Persistence is about consistency, not intensity. It's not about doing everything in one day. It's about showing up when it's boring, when it's slow, when progress feels microscopic. It's easy to be excited at the beginning. But can you keep moving when the honeymoon fades? Can you keep building when the reward hasn't shown up yet? That's what separates those who dream from those who achieve. Not talent, not luck, just relentless commitment. And yet, it's not about being stubborn. It's about being adaptable, being willing to change strategies, but not your purpose. Being open to feedback, but not paralyzed by criticism. Being flexible with your pace, but unshakable in your direction. Resilience is not rigidity, it's endurance with wisdom. Every person you admire has a story of persistence behind the scenes. They kept writing even when the pages felt empty. They kept training even when no one noticed. They kept building even when no one believed. Why? Because their dream wasn't conditional on applause. It was a commitment they made to themselves, a vow to see it through, regardless of how long it took. So the next time you feel like giving up, pause, breathe. Remember why you started, remember who you're becoming, and remind yourself, this is part of it. The doubt, the delay, the silence. It's all part of the becoming. Keep showing up. Not because it's easy, but because you're worth the effort. Because every time you persist, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your excuses and closer than you think. Dreams without action are just fantasies. They feel good to think about. They give you hope, maybe even a little rush of motivation. But unless you move, unless you act, they remain stuck in your imagination, untouched by reality. And the longer you wait, the more they fade, not because they weren't possible, but because you never gave them permission to live. Inspired action is that permission. It's the bridge between who you are now and who you know you could become. But here's the thing, action doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't require a perfect plan or the perfect time. It begins in small, imperfect steps, taken consistently. That's how every transformation starts. With a whisper of clarity and a decision to honor it, one choice at a time. You don't need all the answers. You just need the courage to take the next right step. Because clarity is often a result of movement, not a prerequisite for it. There's a unique kind of momentum that builds when your actions come from alignment, not pressure. When you move because your heart is pulling you, not because you're trying to keep up with someone else's timeline. That's inspired action. It's driven by purpose, not panic. And it feels different. It's energizing, not exhausting. It's sustainable, not frantic. Because it's rooted in your truth, not borrowed expectations. The problem is, many people wait for permission, for confidence, for certainty. They say things like, once I'm ready, or once I have more time, or once things calm down. But the truth is, that perfect moment, it rarely comes. Confidence doesn't show up before the action. It grows because of the action. The only way to become someone who does the hard thing is to do the hard thing, even when your voice shakes, even when your hands tremble. Ask yourself, what's one action you've been postponing even though you know it matters? Maybe it's a conversation you need to have, a project you need to begin, a boundary you need to set. It doesn't have to be huge, but it has to be honest. And once you take that step, no matter how small, the world around you starts to shift. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And don't confuse movement with progress. Busy doesn't mean aligned. Action must be intentional, measured not just by results, but by integrity. Are you acting in a way that honors your future self? Are you planting seeds or just spinning in circles? Sometimes inspired action looks like hustle. Sometimes it looks like rest. The key is knowing the difference. Remember, your dream doesn't require perfection. It requires movement. One decision, 1 hour of focused effort, one bold conversation. That's all it takes to begin. And when you begin, really begin, you tap into a version of yourself that's been waiting to be called forward. So stop waiting, stop rehearsing, stop replaying the fears. You've imagined the dream long enough. Now's the time to step toward it. With faith, with courage, with the kind of action that says, I believe in this so much. I'm willing to become who I must to see it through. Self-care isn't a trend. It's not about scented candles or spa days, though those things can be nice. True self-care is about preservation. It's about protecting your mental clarity, your energy, and your emotional stability so you can show up for the life you're trying to build. Because without it, even the most powerful vision begins to blur. Without it, even the most inspired action turns chaotic. And without it, you burn out chasing things that were supposed to set you free. In a culture that glorifies hustle, slowing down is often mistaken for weakness. But in reality, it's a form of strength. It's the decision to pause, not because you're lazy, but because you're wise enough to know that rest is part of the rhythm of excellence. Every athlete trains hard and then recovers. Every thinker dives deep and then steps back to breathe. You are no different. Mental clarity doesn't come from pushing endlessly. It comes from balancing your energy with intention. Self-care is also about boundaries, not just with others, but with yourself. It's learning to say no to what pulls you away from your center. It's learning to disconnect from the scroll, the noise, the pressure to always respond. Because the truth is, not everything requires your attention. Not every fire is yours to put out. And every time you say yes to something misaligned, you're saying no to your own peace. And peace is where clarity lives. When your mind is cluttered, every decision feels heavier. You overthink. You second-guess. You start reacting instead of responding. But when you create space, when you protect your mornings, simplify your routines, or carve out moments of silence, something powerful happens. Your thoughts become sharper. Your emotions become more stable. You stop being controlled by urgency and start acting from intention. Think about how much time you've lost in mental fog, bouncing between distractions, drained by overcommitment, stretched too thin to even think clearly. Now imagine what you could do if even a fraction of that time was reclaimed. Not through productivity hacks, but through genuine care for your mind. That's what mental clarity gives you. Focus. Not just the ability to get more done, but the wisdom to know what actually matters. This kind of self-care isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it means turning down invitations. Sometimes it means confronting your own bad habits. Sometimes it means facing the emotions you've been numbing with busyness. But it's worth it. Because every step you take toward clarity is a step away from confusion. Every boundary you set is a reminder that your energy is valuable. And every moment of stillness is a message to yourself. I respect who I'm becoming. So ask yourself, what's stealing your clarity right now? What small change can you make today to protect your focus, your peace, your power? It could be as simple as shutting off notifications, going for a walk, or spending 10 minutes alone in silence. But don't underestimate it. Those small choices stack. They build momentum, and over time, they become the foundation for a life that isn't just full, but aligned. Because in the end, self-care isn't about indulgence. It's about sustainability. It's about becoming the kind of person who can carry the weight of their dreams without collapsing underneath them. Trusting yourself is one of the most radical acts of self-liberation you can choose. It's not loud or dramatic. In fact, it's often quiet. A calm confidence that whispers, "I've got this," even when the world around you feels uncertain. But in a culture where we're conditioned to seek external validation for everything, our worth, our goals, even our emotions, trusting yourself feels like swimming upstream. It feels risky, vulnerable, but it's also where your power lives. You don't build self-trust by knowing all the answers. You build it by acting with integrity, by listening to your intuition, making a decision, and honoring it without constantly second-guessing. You build it when you stop outsourcing your choices to people who don't live with your consequences. You build it every time you make a promise to yourself and actually follow through, even when no one's watching. But the truth is, many of us were taught to doubt ourselves. We were trained to believe that experts always know better, that other people's approval determines our value, that unless someone else confirms our direction, we're probably wrong. And so we wait for permission, for validation, for a green light that never comes. We hesitate, overanalyze, and stay stuck in the paralysis of what if. But what if you trusted yourself, not because you're perfect, but because you're committed to learning? What if you believed that mistakes are part of the process, not proof that you're unqualified? What if you stopped treating your intuition like a nuisance and started treating it like a compass? Self-trust doesn't mean you never fall. It means you know how to get back up. It means you don't abandon yourself when things get messy. And here's a powerful truth. The more you trust yourself, the more peaceful your life becomes, because you're no longer tossed around by every opinion, every trend, every fear of getting it wrong. You become your own anchor, your own guide. You start making choices that feel right, even if they look risky. And ironically, that kind of alignment often leads to better outcomes, not because you were certain, but because you were honest. Think about how much time you've lost in indecision, the energy you've wasted trying to predict every possible outcome, the stress of trying to please everyone except the one person who actually matters, you. Now, imagine how different life would feel if you could move forward with clarity, even in uncertainty. That's the gift of self-trust. It's not about being fearless, it's about being rooted. So how do you start trusting yourself again? Begin with small decisions. Choose for yourself. Listen. Reflect. Don't immediately ask for 10 other opinions. Sit with your choice and observe the outcome. Adjust if needed, not from shame, but from curiosity. Every time you act in alignment with your values, you strengthen your trust muscle, and over time, that muscle becomes resilience. In the end, trusting yourself isn't about being right, it's about being real. Real with your values, real with your direction, real with your ability to figure things out as you go. Because if you don't trust your own voice, someone else will gladly speak for you, and the life that follows won't be yours. Fear and doubt are two of the most persuasive liars you'll ever meet. They speak with authority. They pretend to protect you. They wear the mask of logic, whispering that they're just being realistic. But underneath it all, they have one goal: to keep you small, to keep you from trying, to convince you that playing it safe is better than becoming who you were meant to be. And if you're not careful, you'll believe them, not because they're right, but because they're familiar. Letting go of fear and doubt doesn't mean you stop feeling them. It means you stop letting them make decisions for you. It means you stop negotiating your potential every time discomfort shows up. Because fear is loudest right before a breakthrough. It's the brain's way of reacting to uncertainty, not to danger. But most of the things we fear, rejection, judgment, failure, aren't fatal. They're just uncomfortable. And discomfort is where growth begins. We doubt ourselves not because we're incapable, but because we've been conditioned to measure ourselves against impossible standards. We compare our behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. We take one misstep as proof that we're not good enough. But the truth is, everyone doubts, everyone fears. The difference is, some people move anyway. They don't wait for the fear to leave. They simply decide that their dream is more important than their discomfort. Letting go is an active choice. It's saying, I see the fear, but I won't let it decide. I hear the doubt, but I won't let it lead. And every time you act from courage, even in the smallest way, you rewrite the story. You prove to yourself that fear isn't the gatekeeper of your future. You are. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like applying for the opportunity even when you're not 100% ready. It looks like having the conversation you've been avoiding. It looks like sharing your idea, your art, your voice, even when your hands are shaking. It looks like showing up before you feel fully confident and letting the doing create the confidence. Fear loves to tell you to wait until the timing is perfect, until the plan is flawless, until you feel invincible. But that wait can stretch into years, into regret, into a version of your life where the only thing that grew was hesitation, and the only thing that stayed safe was your fear. Doubt, too, feeds on inaction. The longer you pause, the stronger it gets. But the moment you move, even a little, it begins to lose power. You realize that you don't need to eliminate doubt to act. You just need to stop obeying it. Doubt may walk beside you, but it doesn't get to steer. And over time, it grows quieter. Not because you silenced it, but because you outgrew it. So today, choose courage over comfort. Choose movement over perfection. Choose faith over fear. Not blind faith, but the grounded belief that you're capable of learning, adapting, becoming. That belief isn't arrogant in SEI. Is indi necessaire. Because you can't build a life you love while constantly questioning your right to build it. Letting go doesn't mean never feeling afraid again. It means refusing to shrink. It means saying, I'm scared and I'm still going. Because fear only wins when you stop walking. But you were made to move forward. Big dreams are built on small wins, not just the milestones that everyone claps for, the degree, the promotion, the finished product, but the quiet victories that no one sees. Waking up on time when you didn't feel like it. Saying no to what drains you. Taking one more step when your mind told you to quit. These are the moments that shape you, not because they're glamorous, but because they prove one powerful thing: you're showing up for yourself. We live in a world obsessed with the finish line. It celebrates outcomes, not process. It applauds transformation, but ignores the discipline behind it. And that creates a dangerous mindset, one that says, I'm not allowed to be proud until I've achieved something huge. But that mindset is a lie, because the journey is the achievement, the effort is the evidence. And if you don't learn to celebrate the small wins now, you'll keep postponing your joy, your confidence, and your self-respect for some imaginary perfect future that never fully arrives. Every time you make progress, no matter how minor it seems, you're reinforcing a message to yourself. I'm growing, I'm capable, I'm not the same person I was yesterday. And that message is what builds momentum. Think about it. When you acknowledge your wins, you fuel your self-belief. You stay engaged, you build trust with yourself. But when you ignore them, you start feeling like nothing's working, even when it is. Celebrating small wins doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means recognizing that greatness is built in layers. It means understanding that consistency beats intensity. That one page written every day still becomes a book. That 5 minutes of focus still strengthens your discipline. That one honest conversation still heals a relationship. If you're waiting for a huge moment to feel proud, you're missing the entire point. Your growth isn't a destination. It's a daily decision. And here's the truth. When you celebrate progress, you make the process sustainable. You stop burning out trying to reach some distant finish line. You find joy now in the becoming. That joy becomes your fuel. That celebration becomes your anchor. And suddenly the journey stops feeling like a punishment and starts feeling like a privilege. So give yourself credit, not for being perfect, but for being committed. Notice what you did well today. Speak kindly to yourself. Pause to acknowledge how far you've come, even if you still have far to go. Because when you respect the effort, you reinforce the identity. I am someone who keeps going. The small wins matter. They're the hidden scaffolding behind every major success. They're the daily proof that you're not waiting on motivation. You're becoming the kind of person who moves regardless. And that shift in identity, that's where real power begins. So the next time you take a step, however small, stop and honor it. Not to inflate your ego, but to strengthen your spirit. You're building something that lasts. And brick by brick, moment by moment, you're becoming someone unstoppable. Your dreams will never outgrow your habits. No matter how clear your vision is, how strong your desire feels, or how loudly you declare your intentions, if your daily actions don't reflect your goals, they'll eventually fade into frustration. Dreams require structure, vision demands rhythm, and the life you want isn't waiting in some distant future. It's quietly asking, what did you do today? We often romanticize change as something sudden, a bold move, a grand gesture, a breakthrough moment. But real change is quiet. It lives in the smallest details of your day. When you wake up, what you consume, how you speak to yourself, where your attention goes. These things shape you far more than any once-a-year resolution or motivational burst ever could. Because they form the architecture of your mind, the systems through which your entire life flows. Aligning your habits with your dreams begins with honesty. Look at how you spend your time, your energy, your attention. Does it match what you say you want? Or are your days filled with contradiction, chasing focus while drowning in distraction, craving health while clinging to comfort, seeking depth while living on autopilot? This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Because once you see the misalignment, you can start to shift it. Start small. Your habits don't need to be extreme. They need to be true. If your dream is to create, write for 15 minutes. Not when inspiration strikes, but as a ritual. If your dream is to be mentally strong, commit to stillness. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day. If your dream is to build wealth, track what you spend. Not to obsess, but to understand. The goal isn't perfection, It's integrity, doing what you said you'd do, even when it's hard. One of the most powerful habits is reflection. Take a moment each day to ask, did I live today in service of my future self? If the answer is no, don't beat yourself up, adjust. If the answer is yes, recognize it, reinforce it. Because every aligned day builds evidence, and over time, that evidence silences doubt. It creates identity. You stop trying to become the person you want to be. You start realizing you already are, because you've been living like it. Here's a hard truth. Motivation fades. Life gets chaotic. Emotion will waver. But habits carry you when nothing else does. They turn your values into action. They create momentum even when you feel stuck. And most importantly, they shift your self-image. Because every time you show up, even when you don't feel like it, you send a message to yourself. I am disciplined. I am focused. I am someone who follows through. Don't underestimate the power of your routine. What you repeat, you reinforce. And what you reinforce becomes who you are. So choose your habits wisely. Design them around the person you want to become. Don't wait for life to give you time. Create it. Don't hope for change. Live it, one choice at a time. Because at the end of the day, it's not your goals that change your life. It's the small, often invisible, uncelebrated actions you take to honor them again and again, until they become who you are. Your energy is not infinite, and yet we live like it is, saying yes to every request, absorbing every emotion around us, stretching ourselves thinner and thinner just to avoid disappointing others. But here's the truth. If you don't protect your energy, the world will consume it without hesitation. Not out of cruelty, but because you didn't draw the line. And when your energy is scattered, your focus weakens, your peace disappears, and your dreams begin to slip quietly out of reach. Boundaries aren't walls, they're clarity. They're the invisible frameworks that say, this is what I allow in, this is what I keep out. And they're not selfish, they're self-respect in practice. You can't be everything to everyone without becoming nothing to yourself. And every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to something that could restore you, grow you, move you forward. But here's the challenge. Setting boundaries often feels uncomfortable, especially if you've been trained to equate your worth with how much you give. Especially if you were raised to believe that being nice means being endlessly available. But being kind does not mean being constantly accessible. In fact, the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for others is to protect the space you need to thrive. Because when your energy is protected, you show up fully, you love more deeply, you think more clearly, you create more freely, and you begin to notice who supports your boundaries and who only benefited from your lack of them. This is one of the hardest, most liberating realizations you'll face. Not everyone deserves full access to you, and that's not cruel, that's wisdom. So how do you begin? Start by identifying what drains you, what conversations leave you empty, what habits leave you numb, what people leave you doubting yourself, and then, gently but firmly, create space. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to explain yourself to everyone. You simply need to decide, my peace is more important than this pattern. And yes, people may resist. They may call you distant. They may accuse you of changing, but that's only because your boundaries disrupt the comfort of those who benefited from your lack of them. Don't let their discomfort become your guilt. Growth requires friction, and honoring your energy requires courage. Over time, something powerful happens. You begin to feel whole again. You wake up with more clarity. You move through your day with less resentment. You speak with more conviction. And the people who remain in your life, they respect the new standard. Because you've taught them how to treat you, not through your words, but through your actions. This is what protecting your energy does. It clears the noise. It reclaims your time. It opens the door for your highest self to emerge. And from that place of strength, everything else begins to align. Your goals, your habits, your relationships, your peace. So if you're feeling drained, lost, or overwhelmed, don't look for more to do. Look for what to release. Rebuild your energy first. Because your future depends on the version of you that has the strength to choose yourself. Unapologetically, intentionally, consistently. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. What you need is you, fully present, deeply connected, committed to the path that was meant for you, not the one handed to you by others, not the one defined by noise or fear, but the one you quietly feel calling you every single day. That path begins the moment you choose to focus inward, not because you're ignoring the world, but because you've realized that true change always starts from within. Everything we talked about in this episode, self-focus, clarity, resilience, action, boundaries, it's not a checklist. It's not something you do once and forget. It's a new way of living, a deeper level of self-respect. And it only begins when you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start becoming the person who doesn't need one. The person who moves in silence, dreams with courage, and acts with purpose every single day. You don't have to rush. You don't have to prove yourself. You just have to begin with one honest decision, one aligned habit, one courageous boundary. That's how change starts. That's how you become someone the future version of you will look back on with pride and gratitude, because you chose yourself when it would have been easier not to. So wherever you are right now, just remember, you are not behind. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are unfolding. You are becoming. And every small step you take toward yourself is a step away from the noise and closer to the life you've always known was possible. Focus on you, believe in your dreams, guard your energy, and never forget, your future is not something you find, it's something you build. If this episode spoke to something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to take that next step in your journey, subscribe, because we're just getting started.